So you're just getting into comics and everything is great. You're in the shop every Wednesday, you're browsing all the shelves, and you may have even found a series that you like. If you want to ensure that you never miss an issue, this is a video for you. I'll tell you about pull lists and pull boxes and how I use mine today on New Comic Book Day. I'm Ryan Dagley, let's talk comics. So I go to multiple comic shops every month, but there's one shop that I go to every week on Wednesday, and that's the shop that has my pull list. So what is a pull list? Pull lists are like subscription services set up by your local comic shop. So when you set up your pull list, what the shop does is every time a new issue comes out that's on that list, they'll set that issue aside for you so that when you come by the shop, they'll have it ready for you to purchase. This is a great way for your local comic shop to get to know you as well. On a typical visit to the shop, you'll probably browse around some back issues, look at some variants that are on the shelves, and then when you get to the cashier, you'll ask them to check your pull box, and if anything is in there, you'll be able to purchase it. And in some cases, they'll even hook you up with a cool variant. And here's one of the issues that was in my pull box today. Seems simple enough, right? So let's discuss some pros and cons about setting up a pull list. Pro number one, and the main reason for setting up a pull list, is that you get your issues consistently. You're not going to be in the shop every day. You might not make it to the shop every Wednesday. So if your issues come out and you can't make it in, it'll be in your pull box. It's awesome. Pro number two, and depending on the shop, they might bag and board your comic for free. Pro number three, and also depending on the shop, they might discount your comic as well if it's on your pull list. In the case of my local comic shop, they not only give a 10% discount for any comic that's on my list, but they'll also bag and board all the comics for free. Pro number four, and also depending on the shop, pull lists can be pretty flexible. In my case, I don't only have titles on there, but the shop owner also knows that I'm a big Frank Cho fan, so he pulls all the Frank Cho variants that he can find for me. And pro number five, and we're just gonna call this one a special bonus, because I don't think this happens everywhere, but if they like you, they'll hook you up with rare variants, and they'll sell it to you at cover price. That said, they're not all gonna do it. They need to run a business, and some of these shops can't afford to do that. So be understanding and only grateful if it does happen, right? And the biggest pro of them all is really what I had just mentioned. The shop gets to know you a little bit better. They'll know you by name, they'll know what you're into, and you start to build a relationship with that shop. They'll tell you of new comics coming out. They'll really hook you up with the information. These guys are in it all day long. It really helps a collector to have a local comic shop that's really in their corner. Now let's talk about the cons. And there aren't many, and I think some can argue that these aren't cons in general, but here we go. So because I have a pull list in one comic shop, I feel obligated to buy all my new comics at that comic shop. Because I know that they're setting comics aside for me every week, I feel guilty if I buy a new comic at a different one. In my case, I found a really great local comic shop that sells new comics, and I set up my pull list there. Other local comic shops have other great features to them, but in terms of new comics, this one's close to my place. I get to go there every week, and it really suits my needs. There's no need to overcomplicate that, and I still go to other shops, I just don't usually buy new comics there. Another con is depending on the shop, they might require frequent visits to the shop. In the case of my local shop, I have to go there at least once a month. That's not too bad, but I could imagine that other shops have stricter rules on that. And that's because of con number three. Due to abandoned pull lists and pull boxes, comic shops kind of have to eat that cost of comics sitting around that could have otherwise been on the shelf and sold. They're also ordering some of these based on what people want. So if you're going to put in those orders with a comic shop, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing your part. A lot of shops will require that you set up a usually refundable deposit when you set up that box. That kind of helps to offset that cost of people abandoning these boxes. So let's get into how I use my pull box today. I looked online and found a series that's on my pull list is coming out today, and that's The Good Asian number 2. I then went to the store and I picked up the variant that I liked and took that to the cashier. I asked them to check my pull box, and they knew me by name, which made me feel pretty special. They pulled out the standard variant, and normally I don't need to buy both the standard cover and the variant, but I'm really digging this series and I wanted to collect them all. At my local comic shop, if I didn't want to buy either of those, they would just let me pass on it right there. I try not to do this too much because it adds extra work to the shop, but at the same time, money is money, and if I don't set some boundaries, this hobby could really break the bank. So sometimes I do pass, even though I feel guilty about it. Now this is a typical experience for me, and your mileage may vary. So if you're interested in setting up a pull list at your local comic shop, just ask them about the policies, ask them if they'll look into covers from artists that you like, or if they'll just go by issues. They've all got different rules, and some shops don't even have pull boxes, so just check if you want to get that set up. One note I want to add is to shop around. If you're lucky enough to have multiple comic shops in your area, get to know each of them. I have one shop that is great for back issues, but it overcharges the cover price on new variants. I then have another shop that's awesome for dollar bins, even another one that's great for indie titles and local artists, and finally my shop for new comics and my pull box. We'll get into Previews World and ordering comics in another video. In this one I just wanted to give you a small introduction into making the comic shop experience just a little bit more personal for you, and to help you develop your hobby just a little bit more. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, give me a like if you liked it, and check out my other videos for more comic tips. We do geek stuff and we live a geek life.